A colossal bronze giant once watched over the entrance to an ancient harbour. The Colossus of Rhodes stood for just 56 years, yet its story has inspired people for more than 2,000. Why does a fallen statue still capture our drive to reach for the extraordinary? By the end of this journey, you will understand how a single monument came to represent the very spirit of human vision. We will explore the mystery of why the idea of its rebuilding was set aside, and how its fragments offered a more profound insight than its complete form ever did. What does our own longing to build upward reveal about us today? The spirit of Rhodes was forged not in peace, but under the shadow of a 9-story tall war machine. In 305 BC, the Macedonian ruler Demetrius Poliorcetes brought his entire military might to the island's shores. His ambition was absolute, and his tools were unprecedented. The centerpiece of his assault was the Helepolis, a rolling fortress clad in iron, requiring the strength of 3,400 men just to move it into position. This was not merely a siege, it was an attempt to erase a city from the earth. Yet, for an entire year, the people of Rhodes refused to break. They countered every advanced engine with their own resourcefulness and resolve, mounting a defense that became legendary. They held the line until a fleet sent by their ally Ptolemy of Egypt finally arrived, forcing Demetrius to withdraw, and then came the pivotal moment that would change everything. Instead of taking his weapons of war with him, Demetrius left them all behind. Historians still debate his motives, whether it was an act of respect for a worthy opponent or a simple calculation that moving the massive equipment was not worth the effort. For the Rhodians, the reason mattered less than the result. The sprawling, abandoned war machines, mountains of bronze and iron meant for one purpose, now lay silent in their fields. This was the unexpected bounty, the raw material for a new dream. The very bronze that once formed shields and siege towers would now be melted down, its purpose transformed from enacting a blockade to celebrating a hard-won freedom. From these instruments of conflict, a symbol of peace and gratitude would rise. This decision transformed the bronze from a tool of conquest into a sacred pact. The Rhodians vowed to build a statue of Helios, their patron deity, on a scale never before attempted. This was far more than a victory monument. It was a votive offering, a tangible fulfillment of a promise made to the divine in their most difficult hour. They believed Helios had shielded their island, and this colossal figure would be their eternal thank you, a lasting reminder of the covenant between the city and its protector. This spiritual dimension infused the entire endeavor with a sense of profound duty. The ambition to build was no longer just human pride, it was an act of devotion. The very metal once shaped for one purpose would now be recast in the image of the sun god, a being of light and cosmic order. This act of transformation carried deep symbolic meaning, a conscious choice to channel the resources of the past toward a higher purpose. The spiritual imperative behind the Colossus gave its immense physical form a soul. It anchored human ambition in a quest for divine favor, making the statue not just a wonder of engineering, but a testament to a community's faith. This sacred motivation would fuel the immense effort required and become central to the legend that outlasted the bronze itself. The responsibility for this impossible project fell to a man named Chares of Lindos. He was a brilliant sculptor, a student of the legendary artist Lysippos, but his task was far greater than artistry alone. Chares had to become an architect, an engineer, and a master of logistics on a scale no one had ever attempted before. Ancient records tell us the work consumed 12 long years, a period filled with relentless problem-solving. How do you build a god? Chares devised a solution as brilliant as it was simple. He directed the construction of a massive earthen ramp that coiled around the emerging statue like a great slumbering hill. This ramp became the road his workers traveled, allowing them to assemble the bronze plates from the ground up, section by painstaking section. They were quite literally building the giant from its own feet upward, encasing it in earth until the moment it was ready to stand revealed. This story of creation, however, is shadowed by a deeply personal turn. Some ancient accounts suggest Chares did not live to see the finished work. It is said that after a critical and costly miscalculation was discovered, the weight of his ambition became too heavy to carry. This narrative, whether entirely factual or part of the enduring legend, adds a profound human dimension to the tale. The architect himself became a symbol of the immense personal risk and total investment demanded by such a grand vision. His story reminds us that behind every great wonder of the world, there are individuals who stake their entire being on its success. This vision of a hollow bronze god began with a framework of iron and stone. Artisans did not carve the Colossus from a solid block. They built it from the outside in, using an ancient technique called Sphyrelaton. Imagine hundreds of individual bronze plates, each one hammered into the shape of a god's limb or a fold of drapery. These plates were then fastened to an intricate internal skeleton, piece by piece, creating a vast and shimmering shell. To keep this hollow giant from swaying or collapsing in the coastal winds, its interior was packed with stone blocks and sturdy columns. This was the secret to its stability, a mountain of masonry hidden within the form of a deity. The sheer scale of the metalworking defies belief. Each bronze plate had to be smelted and cast, a monumental task requiring furnaces burning for months on end. Some of these segments weighed several tons, and lifting them into place high above the ground was a delicate and carefully orchestrated process using ropes and ramps. This was not merely sculpture, it was large-scale metallurgy and structural engineering. The project demanded a symphony of different crafts, from the miners who extracted the ore to the blacksmiths who forged the iron frame, all working in concert under a single, audacious plan. The engineering itself was a pure expression of the human drive to reach beyond physical limits, to take the raw materials of the earth and assemble them into something that touched the sky. Its height was recorded at 70 cubits, a figure that translates to a staggering 108 feet. To stand at its base would have been to look up at a bronze giant that rivaled a 15-story building, a figure taller even than the modern Statue of Liberty from its feet to its head. This was not an incremental improvement on past statues. It was a leap into an entirely new realm of possibility. The scale was the entire point, a deliberate declaration meant to overwhelm any visitor arriving by sea. Long before their ships could make out the buildings of the city, sailors would see this shimmering figure of the sun god, a permanent sentinel announcing the power and piety of the island that built it. The ambition was carved into its very dimensions, a statement of identity meant to be seen from the horizon. Funding such a behemoth required a fortune. The 300 talents of bronze and iron left behind by Demetrius provided the core material, but this was only the beginning of the expense. The sheer volume of labor was immense, with teams of workers employed for 12 continuous years. Artists, engineers, stonemasons, and countless laborers all required payment. The massive marble pedestal upon which the Colossus stood was itself a monumental and costly construction. When you add the cost of feeding the workforce, maintaining the foundries, and procuring additional materials, the total investment becomes almost incomprehensible. This was not a project funded by a wealthy king from his personal treasury. It was a massive financial commitment undertaken by the entire city-state of Rhodes, a conscious decision to pour a significant portion of their collective wealth into a single, defining symbol. The cost was a direct measure of their aspirational goals, a tangible commitment to the idea that their identity was worth this immense price. They were not just building a statue, they were building a legend, and they were willing to invest in it with the resources of a generation. For 56 years, the giant stood watch. Its polished bronze skin caught the first light of dawn, a second sun rising over the harbor to greet the ships below. This was the Colossus in its glory, a living, shimmering symbol that transformed the skyline of Rhodes. The statue depicted the god Helios in a classical pose, his head likely crowned with the radiating spokes of the sun, his hand perhaps lifting a torch high into the air. For any vessel sailing into the Mandrake harbor, the journey meant passing directly into the shadow of this immense figure, a psychological masterstroke designed to instill a sense of wonder and immediate respect for the island's power. This was no silent monument. It was an active statement of identity, a declaration that this city-state possessed the wealth, the artistry, and the sheer confidence to operate on a divine scale. During this brief but brilliant period, the Colossus became the heart of Rhodian life. It was the first thing its citizens saw upon returning home, and the last sight for those departing, a constant, reassuring presence in their daily lives. Travelers from across the known world made the journey specifically to witness this new wonder, their accounts spreading its fame far and wide. It proved that a community, bound by a shared vision, could achieve what was once thought possible only for empires with limitless resources. The statue was more than a tribute to a god. It was a celebration of its own creation, a lasting testament to the collective will that brought it into being. This golden age, though remarkably short, forged a legend that would far outlive the bronze itself. Then, in the year 226 BC, the earth itself moved. A massive tremor shook the island of Rhodes to its core, and the Colossus met its fate at the point where all its immense weight converged, its knees. The giant did not simply tilt or crack, it shattered, its bronze form crashing down in a ruin of twisted metal and broken stone. The sound of its fall must have been a roar that echoed the earthquake itself, a physical and spiritual cataclysm for the people who watched their protector laid low. The very god they believed shielded their home was now a sprawling wreck upon their shore. This was far more than the loss of a magnificent statue. It was a profound crisis of faith. How could the symbol of their divine covenant now lie broken by the very natural forces it was supposed to withstand? In the stunned and fearful aftermath, the Rhodians sought guidance from the most revered spiritual authority they knew, the oracle at Delphi. The message they received was both definitive and devastating. The oracle declared that the gods were displeased and forbade the people from ever raising the Colossus again. This divine prohibition transformed the disaster into a cautionary tale. It suggested that their ambition, however pious its origins, had somehow crossed an invisible line, that in building so high they had invited a form of celestial correction. The message imbued the fallen giant with a new, somber meaning, a layer of fatalism that would cling to its story for centuries. Human striving, it seemed, had its limits. The image of the magnificent giant lying in pieces on the beach became one of history's most enduring metaphors. It was a stark, physical reminder of the fragility of even our grandest creations when confronted with the raw, untamable power of the natural world. The fall did not, however, erase the Colossus from memory. Instead, it began the statue's most profound transformation. It was no longer just a wonder of the world, it was now a poignant lesson. Its broken form, resting silently for the next 8 centuries, would come to symbolize something more complex and more human than its perfect, towering presence ever could, a legacy born not from its glory but from its ruin. The fallen giant did not vanish from the world, but instead began a second, even longer life. For nearly 900 years, the colossal ruins remained exactly where they had settled upon the shore. The Roman writer Pliny the Elder, who traveled to see the wreckage for himself, recorded that even in its broken state, the statue was a breathtaking marvel. He wrote that few individuals could wrap their arms fully around its enormous thumb, and the hollow interior of its shattered limbs felt like great caverns one could walk inside. The site became one of the ancient world's most famous destinations, a journey for those wishing to stand in the shadow of a dream that had passed. This vast framework of bronze and stone offered a different kind of wonder, one not of power and perfection, but of scale and quiet reflection. It was here, amid the careful balance of these massive fragments, that a famous saying was born. Observers noted that some pieces were so delicately perched that they appeared to hang by a single thread, giving rise to the enduring phrase we still use today to describe a fragile situation. The Colossus in ruin taught a more complex lesson than the Colossus ever did while standing. Its long journey through time allowed it to gather profound philosophical meaning. It became a quiet teacher on the nature of ambition, a physical reminder that no grand vision, however mighty, stands apart from the patient work of the ages. Its story was no longer just one of creation, but of inevitable change. This lasting presence, a marker of transition that outlasted empires, ensured its legend would be written not in bronze, but in the shared memory of every generation that came to reflect upon its pieces. Centuries of quiet change ended with a final, definitive act of commerce. In the middle of the 7th century, after new forces secured control of Rhodes, a merchant saw the sprawling bronze fragments not as a monument, but as a resource. The chronicler Theophanes recorded that a merchant from the city of Edessa purchased the material, requiring a caravan of 900 camels to transport the metal. This was the statue's last journey, not into legend, but into the furnaces of a new era. The Colossus, born from the repurposed weapons of a siege, was now itself broken down, its bronze destined to be reshaped into coins, tools, or other objects once more. This practical, almost ordinary conclusion stood in stark opposition to its celebrated origins. The very act that removed its physical presence, however, completed its transformation into something far more powerful. With no tangible pieces left to anchor it to a specific place or form, the Colossus was freed from the constraints of reality. It could no longer be measured, studied, or sketched. All that remained were the words of those who had seen it, both whole and fragmented, and the vast, open space where it once stood. This material transition was the final, necessary step in its journey from a statue to a symbol. Its complete physical absence allowed its image to grow in the human mind, untethered and limitless. Artists and writers in later centuries, with no archaeological evidence to contradict them, began to reimagine the giant. They pictured it bestriding the Harbour entrance, a physical impossibility for the engineering of its time, but a poetic truth that captured its overwhelming presence. The idea of the Colossus, now pure and unconsumed by time, became far greater and more inspiring than the bronze reality ever was. Its erasure did not diminish its story, it perfected it, turning a fallen wonder into an eternal question about the reach of human ambition. Centuries after its bronze was hauled away on the backs of camels, the Colossus found a new home, not in stone or metal, but in the pages of rediscovered books. As Europe emerged from a long period of inward focus, scholars began devouring the classical texts preserved by Arabic and Byzantine scribes. Within these manuscripts, they encountered descriptions of the ancient wonder, and a spark was lit. With no ruins to constrain their imagination, artists and thinkers were free to rebuild the statue in their minds. and they constructed an image far grander than reality. The most enduring of these visions showed the giant bestriding the entrance to the harbor, a leg planted firmly on each pier, with ships passing calmly beneath its towering form. This was a physical and historical impossibility, a feat of engineering far beyond the capabilities of ancient builders, yet it felt poetically true. It captured the overwhelming scale and presence the statue must have possessed. This iconic pose transformed the Colossus into something more than a fallen monument. It became a gateway, a literal and figurative portal to a lost age of human achievement. The image resonated perfectly with the burgeoning spirit of humanism, a philosophy that celebrated human potential and looked to the classical past for inspiration. For Renaissance thinkers, the Colossus was not merely a relic to be admired from a distance. It was a direct challenge, a gauntlet thrown down by the ancestors. If those who came before could reach such heights, why could they not do the same or even greater? This symbolic rebirth fueled a new era of ambition that stretched from the domes of cathedrals to the decks of exploration ships. The Giant of Rhodes was no longer a cautionary tale about pride, but a brilliant emblem of what humanity might once again achieve. Its inclusion among the 7 wonders of the world was a final, permanent seal on its legend. This ancient list was far more than a simple travel guide for wealthy tourists. It was a deliberate act of cultural memory, a collective decision by classical writers to define the absolute limits of human ambition in the built world. To be named one of the 7 wonders was to be placed in a hall of fame for human achievement, an exclusive club where membership guaranteed immortality. The Colossus was no longer just a statue from Rhodes. It was now a peer to the Great Pyramid of Giza and the Hanging Gardens of Babylon. Its story was woven into the grandest narrative of all, the story of humanity reaching for the sublime. Why did this list have such enduring power? It speaks to a fundamental human instinct, the desire to measure, to rank, and to celebrate the peaks of our own creativity. By creating this catalogue, ancient scholars were making a profound statement. They were saying that these 7 constructions represented the very best of what their civilization could conceive and build. The Colossus, in its fragmented state, offered a unique and poignant lesson within this group. While other wonders spoke of power or luxury, the Colossus told a story of community, faith, and the delicate nature of even our greatest works. Its presence on the list ensured that its specific tale of ambition and its philosophical message about pride would be studied and retold for centuries. It became a lasting symbol not just of what we can build, but of what those creations ultimately mean to us. The list gave the giant a second, unshakable foundation, one built not on stone or bronze, but on the timeless human need to remember what makes us extraordinary. This fallen giant found its way into the very language of storytelling. Its dramatic arc, from audacious creation to sudden transition, offered a perfect allegory for writers and philosophers grappling with the nature of ambition. The statue became a powerful symbol for hubris, that ancient Greek concept of overconfidence that invites a turn of fortune. Its fragmented form served as a quiet, lasting reminder that even the grandest human achievements are subject to the steady passage of time and the unpredictable shifts of fate. William Shakespeare, a master of human drama, saw its symbolic power. In his play Julius Caesar, he has the character Cassius declare, "Why, man, he doth bestride the narrow world like a colossus." This line instantly conjures an image of overwhelming, almost towering power, a force so large it makes ordinary people feel small. This was the Colossus in the literary imagination, not a specific statue, but a universal metaphor for any entity, be it a person or an empire that had grown too large and proud. For centuries of poets and storytellers, the Giant of Rhodes was a convenient and profound shorthand. It allowed them to explore the delicate balance between glorious ambition and the potential for a great shift, all within a single, evocative image. This literary life allowed the Colossus to remain culturally relevant long after its physical form was gone. It was no longer tied to a specific harbor in Greece, but could be summoned anywhere a writer wished to discuss the dangers and the splendors of reaching for the sky. The idea of the Colossus, endlessly adaptable, continued to provoke reflection on a fundamental human question: how high is too high to build, and what do we truly learn when our creations eventually become part of the landscape? The spirit of the Colossus found a new form in the 19th century, rising from New York Harbor. The Statue of Liberty was consciously designed as a modern Colossus, a deliberate echo of that ancient ambition. Its creators, from the sculptor Frédéric Bartholdi to the engineer Gustave Eiffel, looked directly to the past for inspiration, seeking to build a new giant for a new age. Where the original was a tribute to a sun god, this new figure became a universal symbol of enlightenment and freedom, her torch a beacon for millions. This was not a coincidence, but a continuation, proving that the human drive to create monumental symbols is timeless. That same impulse to build upward and make a statement that can be seen from the horizon resonates in the relentless race to construct the world's tallest skyscraper. It echoes in the elegant sweep of a suspension bridge connecting two shores once thought separate, and in the fiery launch of a spacecraft aimed at distant stars. Each of these achievements, in its own way, asks the same fundamental question the Rhodians did: can we leave a mark that will be remembered? The Colossus stands as the archetype for this desire, the original blueprint for our urge to build on a scale that simply cannot be ignored. Yet, alongside this inspiration lies its ancient role as a cautionary tale. Its story is deeply intertwined with another legendary structure, the Tower of Babel. Both narratives speak to a similar theme, that a unified human ambition to reach for the heavens can be met with a form of correction. The Colossus, brought low by an earthquake, and the tower, halted by a confusion of languages, serve as permanent reminders that grand projects can overreach. They warn that in our quest to touch the sky, we must remain mindful of our own limitations and the forces beyond our control. This is the dual nature that gives the Colossus its profound and lasting power. It is both a shining example of what we can achieve together and a quiet, sobering lesson in humility. It does not tell us to stop building, but to understand why we build, and to remember that the greatest monuments are those that speak not only to our power, but to our purpose. This drive to build beyond necessity is written into our very identity as a species. Why do we feel this deep-seated need to leave a mark that time cannot easily erase? The Rhodians understood that a monument is far more than stone or bronze. It is a vessel for memory, a declaration of who we are that is meant to speak long after our own voices have faded. Their Colossus was a direct response to the cultural giants of their era, a statement to rivals like Athens with its Parthenon and Alexandria with its legendary lighthouse that Rhodes, too, possessed a spirit worthy of legend. They were not merely honoring a divine presence, they were inscribing their name into the grand story of civilization, asserting their relevance on the world stage. This kind of ambition becomes the unseen engine of progress. It pushes the boundaries of what is possible, forcing innovations in engineering, art, and social organization. The quest to build a wonder demands new ways of thinking, new methods of collaboration, and new solutions to problems no one has ever faced before. The technological leaps required to raise the Colossus did not vanish with its fall. They became part of the shared knowledge of the ancient world, a foundation upon which future generations could build. This cycle of aspiration and achievement is how cultures advance. We reach for the extraordinary, not just for the glory of the finished object, but for the transformation that occurs within us during the attempt. The Colossus, in its brief life and long cultural legacy, demonstrates that our most ambitious projects are ultimately conversations with the future. They are our way of asking to be remembered, and in doing so, they push the entire human story forward. The Colossus of Rhodes stands as a permanent question mark about the nature of ambition itself. Was this towering figure the ultimate act of humility, or was it a masterpiece of human pride cleverly disguised as faith? The people of Rhodes sincerely believed they were fulfilling a sacred promise, building a votive offering to Helios in gratitude for their deliverance. This was an act of piety, a communal gesture meant to honor a power greater than themselves. Yet, the form this gratitude took was an unprecedented declaration of human ability. Its staggering height, its revolutionary engineering, and its dominating presence were all undeniable statements of what the people of Rhodes could accomplish. The statue did not whisper a quiet thank you, it shouted their triumph to the entire Mediterranean. This is the central tension that gives the story its enduring power. The same bronze that formed a god also reflected the faces of the people who built it, blurring the line between a gift to the heavens and a monument to themselves. This duality is not unique to ancient Rhodes. We see it echoed throughout history whenever a civilization channels its collective spirit into a great work. A cathedral spire piercing the clouds is both a prayer and a feat of engineering. A mission to explore the stars is both a quest for knowledge and a testament to our own ingenuity. The Colossus invites us to consider a deeper question about our own drives. When we reach for the extraordinary, even in the name of a noble cause, are we serving an ideal, or are we ultimately celebrating our own capacity to reach it? This is not a simple either-or proposition. The most profound human achievements often live in that ambiguous space where devotion and pride become intertwined. The true symbolic weight of the Colossus lies in this very tension, a reminder that our grandest gestures are rarely pure, and that the desire to leave a lasting legacy can be a powerful and sometimes complicating form of aspiration. Yet this bronze titan was also a masterclass in real-world strategy. Beyond its spiritual meaning, the Colossus functioned as a brilliant piece of economic and political theater. For the rival kingdoms of the Hellenistic world, constantly vying for influence, the statue was an unmistakable signal. Its sheer cost and complexity broadcast a powerful message of Rhodian wealth, stability, and most importantly, independence. A city-state that could afford to pour a generation's resources into a symbol of peace was a state confident in its security and prosperous in its trade. This was not a quiet display, it was a calculated projection of influence meant for an international audience. The monument quickly became a major attraction, drawing travelers, merchants, and skilled craftsmen from across the Mediterranean. This influx of visitors and talent would have provided a continuous boost to the local economy, turning Rhodes into a must-see destination. The harbour was always full, the markets bustling, all under the gaze of their divine protector. The political vision behind this investment was profound. The Rhodians chose to build a wonder of the world instead of expanding their navy or fortifying their walls further. This decision declared that their greatest strength was not merely military might, but their cultural and economic prestige. They were investing in their identity, in a form of soft power that could achieve what fleets alone could not. The Colossus made Rhodes appear unshakable, a center of civilization so secure it could dedicate itself to art and the divine. In this way, the statue became a strategic asset as vital as any fortress. its presence a longer-lasting and more persuasive boundary than any wall. Even the grandest dreams are built with the tools of their time. The Colossus represented a breathtaking leap in engineering, yet its very design contained the seeds of its own fragility. Its creators assembled it using the most advanced techniques of the Hellenistic age, a hollow bronze shell anchored to a core of stone and iron. This was a brilliant solution for creating a stable, towering figure, but it possessed a critical vulnerability, a certain rigidity when confronted with the rolling, unpredictable forces of an earthquake. The statue stood as a masterpiece of static engineering, designed to resist the constant push of the wind, but not the sudden, chaotic shudder of the earth. It existed at the absolute frontier of contemporary knowledge, a testament to what was possible, but also a silent indicator of what was not yet understood about dynamic loads and seismic resilience. Its eventual transition was not a failure of vision, but a demonstration of a fundamental truth. Human ambition is always in a dialogue with the physical world, and our grandest projects are inevitably bounded by the current state of our materials and our science. The Colossus, in its spectacular rise and departure, perfectly captures this tension. It symbolizes both the glorious peak of ancient capability and its ultimate ceiling. Every civilization's wonders are, in a sense, defined and limited by their technological context. The pyramids, the great temples, the sprawling aqueducts, each is a magnificent answer to the question of what their era could build. The poignant vulnerability of the Colossus lies in this very fact. It was the best possible version of itself that the 3rd century before the Common Era could produce, a perfect and beautiful product of its time, destined to be outmatched by the timeless, raw power of nature. This layer of the story does not diminish its achievement, but rather deepens its meaning, turning it from a simple tale of pride into a more profound meditation on the relationship between human ingenuity and the enduring constraints of the world we inhabit. The true location of the Colossus remains one of history's most captivating puzzles. Centuries of searching have yielded no definitive trace of its foundations, leaving scholars to piece together clues from ancient writings and the landscape itself. While many imagine it straddling the harbour mouth, most modern research suggests it stood on a prominent point of land overlooking the water, a position that would have made it visible from great distances without requiring impossible engineering. Archaeologists have examined large blocks of marble and curious rock formations around the Mandrake Harbour, each one a potential candidate for the statue's massive pedestal. The challenge is that Rhodes is an island layered with history, where later Roman, Byzantine, and medieval constructions were often built directly atop older sites, covering the classical past beneath centuries of stone. This physical absence has become a central part of the Colossus myth. Because we cannot point to its exact footprint, the giant is free to exist in our collective imagination, forever adaptable and larger than life. The search continues with sophisticated tools, from ground-penetrating radar that maps subterranean structures to core samples extracted from the harbour floor, analyzed for traces of bronze or construction debris that could date back to the Great Project. Every potential clue is met with a mixture of hope and rigorous skepticism, a careful dance between wanting to find the truth and knowing that the mystery is what gives the legend its enduring power. This ongoing quest reveals something profound about our relationship with the past. We are not just trying to locate a collection of stones, we are attempting to anchor a soaring symbol back to the solid ground of fact, to finally understand the physical reality of a dream that has walked the earth for more than 2,000 years. The lack of a definitive answer is not a failure of archaeology, but a gift to the human spirit, ensuring the Colossus remains an open question, an invitation to keep looking, and a reminder that some wonders are defined as much by what we cannot know as by what we can. This same ancient story now casts a long shadow over our own era of digital creation. We are building new colossi not from bronze, but from lines of code and vast networks of data. These are the global social media platforms connecting billions, the corporations whose influence spans continents, and the emerging intelligence systems that promise to reshape our world. They are monuments to a modern kind of ambition, driven by a familiar blend of utopian idealism and the desire to leave an indelible mark on the landscape of human connection. Their architects, much like the Rhodians, operate with a profound belief in their power to unify and improve the world. Yet these digital giants are not immune to their own forms of seismic pressure. The equivalent of an earthquake might be a sudden shift in public trust, a market correction that erases immense value overnight, or an unforeseen ethical dilemma that challenges the very foundation of their design. The story of the Colossus gives us a powerful framework to ask difficult questions about our own creations. Are we building structures that are resilient, transparent, and truly serve the communities they connect? Or are we creating new, centralized powers that, for all their brilliance, might one day reveal a critical weakness in their foundations? The parallel invites a crucial reflection on the nature of legacy in the digital realm. A fallen bronze statue left a haunting and beautiful ruin for centuries. What remains when a digital platform, a virtual world, or an online community comes to an end? Does it simply fade from view, leaving behind only traces in archived data and cultural memory? The Cautionary Tale of Rhodes is not a warning to stop building, but a call to build wisely. It asks us to consider the core values we are encoding into our systems and to anticipate the long-term consequences of our most ambitious designs. In this light, the ancient giant becomes a silent partner in our modern dialogue, reminding us that the true test of any wonder is not just its initial grandeur, but its ability to endure the tremors of time and change. Something deep within us responds to the truly gigantic. The Colossus did not just impress with its artistry, it commanded a profound psychological reaction, one that ambitious builders have sought to replicate ever since. Awe is the word we use for this complex feeling, a mixture of wonder, reverence, and a touch of healthy respect. Standing before something so vastly larger than ourselves triggers a perspective shift, a humbling reminder of our own small place in the world. Yet this feeling is not purely diminishing. When the colossal object is our own creation, that awe is tinged with a powerful sense of pride. We feel our own smallness, but we also see a stunning proof of what we can accomplish together. This emotional blend is incredibly potent, and it is a primary reason why so many of our most ambitious projects, from cathedrals to skyscrapers, aim first and foremost for sheer, breathtaking scale. The Giant of Rhodes was one of the first human-made objects to master this psychological effect. It was not merely a large statue, it was an experience. It translated the abstract idea of a community's faith and freedom into an undeniable physical reality that could be seen from the horizon and felt in the heart of every person who sailed into its shadow. This use of size to communicate importance, permanence, and power became a blueprint. A colossal structure makes a promise of endurance, suggesting that the idea it represents is too big, too solid to simply fade away. Its psychological impact, therefore, is not a side effect of its design, it is the very core of its symbolic power. The Colossus taught us that to capture the human spirit, sometimes you must first capture the entire sky. From the sands of Egypt to the jungles of Mesoamerica, the human hand has always reached for the monumental. The great Sphinx of Giza, a lion with a pharaoh's face, projects timeless authority over the desert. The massive stone heads carved by the Olmec people in ancient Mexico seem to hold the deep, silent wisdom of the forest. These giants, emerging from cultures separated by oceans and millennia, point toward a shared instinct, a universal language written in stone and scale. We are a species that builds big, and we do so to give form to our most profound beliefs, our most powerful rulers, and our deepest cultural ideals. The Colossus of Rhodes belongs to this global family of giants, yet it stands apart for one remarkable reason. While the origins of the Sphinx are shrouded in the mists of time, and the purpose of the Olmec heads is pieced together from archaeological clues, the story of the Colossus is illuminated by the clear light of history. We know the name of its sculptor, Chares of Lindos. We know the source of its bronze, the abandoned weapons of a siege. We know the spiritual and political motivations of the city that commissioned it, and we have detailed accounts of its spectacular transition. This wealth of specific knowledge transforms the Colossus from a mysterious relic into a detailed case study. It allows us to move beyond wondering what these colossal figures represented, to understanding precisely how one was conceived, funded, engineered, and ultimately how it met its end. The universal impulse to build big is a fascinating pattern across human history. The story of Rhodes provides the narrative, the complete and compelling script for that pattern. It shows us the human faces behind the giant, the complex calculations, the spiritual fervor, and the sheer, gritty effort required to lift an idea into the sky. By comparing it to its silent, ancient cousins, we see that the ambition itself is a common thread in the human tapestry. But the Colossus gives us something more precious, the full story of that ambition in motion, a complete cycle of creation and change that continues to speak to us long after its bronze was melted down. The giant never truly fell. It simply learned to walk through time, reappearing wherever the human imagination gathers. You can find its silhouette in the grand paintings of the Renaissance, where artists reimagined it as a titan of myth, and in the digital arenas of modern video games, where it stands as a formidable guardian or a place to be explored. In fantasy literature, it becomes a relic of a forgotten empire, its silent form a monument to lost knowledge. Each generation rediscovers the Colossus and molds it to reflect their own hopes and anxieties. For some, it is a caution about overreach, a symbol of power that must be questioned. For others, it represents a nostalgic golden age, a peak of achievement from which we have since stepped away. And in our own technologically curious era, we often recast it as a marvel of ancient engineering, a creation powered by ingenuity and flame. The most persistent image, however, is not of the statue standing proud, but of its beautiful transformation over time. We are drawn to its altered state, to the quiet dignity of weathered grandeur resting peacefully in a field or partly embraced by the sea. This aesthetic of the aged site speaks to a deep-seated human fascination with the passage of time and the poignant beauty of what once was. Why does this particular image hold such power? It allows us to gently consider the legacy of our own endeavors, to find a kind of thoughtful splendor in the idea that all great things in time find a symbolic place in the world. This constant renewal in art and entertainment does more than just keep a historical name alive. It proves that the core themes of the Colossus are universal and endlessly adaptable. Its story of ambition, creation, and change is a framework so powerful it can be draped with almost any meaning. The statue is no longer a static object from the past, but a living symbol in a continuous conversation with the present, always ready to be summoned when we need to visualize the breathtaking scale of our dreams or the quiet humility of their lasting impression. That fallen giant on the shore of Rhodes became a permanent line in the sand for human potential. It established a new category of achievement, a benchmark that shifted the very definition of what a community could accomplish. Before its construction, a statue of such scale was the stuff of myth. After it stood, however briefly, it became a documented fact, a precedent written in bronze and history. This is its most enduring legacy, not as a specific wonder, but as a proven concept. The Colossus demonstrated that the seemingly impossible was, in fact, attainable. It transformed a towering ambition from a fleeting dream into a tangible challenge for every generation that followed. Consider the engineers who design our modern skyscrapers. They are not just solving problems of physics and material science. They are also, in a subtle way, answering a question posed over 2,000 years ago. They are proving that we can build even higher, that we can refine the techniques first pioneered on that ancient harbor. The same is true for the artists who conceive vast public installations or the leaders who rally people around a transformative civic project. Each is operating in the long shadow of that first colossal leap, responding to the silent, perpetual challenge laid down by the Rhodians and their visionary sculptor, Chares. What is the next great thing we can build? This is the question the Colossus forever whispers to us. It embodies the restless, creative, and profoundly audacious spirit that refuses to accept the limits of the present. Its story is not a closed book about a structure that has passed, but an open invitation, a perpetual call to dream bigger and to build in a way that speaks to the ages. The Colossus of Rhodes endures not as a pile of bronze and stone, but as a powerful idea. It symbolizes the brilliant, audacious, and deeply human drive to create, to seek connection with forces greater than ourselves, to reshape our surroundings, and to leave a meaningful legacy for the future. Its entire journey, from a vow of gratitude to a field of fragments, captures the complete cycle of aspiration. It reminds us of our incredible potential to bring dreams into reality, while also acknowledging the natural limits we all encounter. Every time we look at a modern skyline graced by towers of glass and steel, or witness the launch of a mission to another world, we are seeing the same fundamental impulse that moved the Rhodians. Why do we feel this compelling need to build upward and outward? The story of the Colossus offers a timeless reflection on this question. It suggests that our grand projects are more than just functional structures. They are conversations with the future, declarations of who we are and what we value as a civilization. They speak of our desire to be remembered, to contribute something lasting to the great story of human endeavor. Let this ancient wonder inspire you to look at the monuments of our own age with fresh eyes. Consider the digital networks that connect the globe, the vast bridges that span canyons, and the quiet parks dedicated to peace. What ambitions do they represent? What stories will they tell about us to those who come next? If this exploration of human drive resonated with you, we would love to hear your reflections in the comments below. Share which symbols of ambition you see shaping our world today, and subscribe for more journeys into the stories that